In your estimation, how's this trial going for the Missouri Attorney General's case?
It's going very well. We've gotten in all the evidence we expected to by this point. The testimony's come in pretty much as we would like it to. None of our witnesses have been hurt on cross-examination, so we're feeling cautiously optimistic.
Any surprises so far?
No surprises.
It seems like your strongest point in this case is going to be the fact that the sheriff's in jail. That's what got him temporarily stripped of his office. Why did you guys start with all the other aspects of the case instead of starting with that first, since that obviously is the strongest part of your case, right?
Yeah, but all those counts are important because those are the ways that he was abusing his authority and costing the taxpayers money, and the reasons why he wasn't doing his job, like in terms of transporting prisoners for medical attention. I mean, the basis of our quo is really two things. He was abusing his authority, and that he wasn't doing the job that he was assigned to do. So we needed to get that evidence in.
A lot of twists and turns with Shaver's schedule, the deputy who's accused of transporting the children. Her hours are very unusual, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., and then the HR director is saying he doesn't even know when she worked. Tell me about those twists and turns in the investigation that you guys did to find out what her schedule was.
Well, it was very helpful, and I know it's not your channel, but Channel 4's video that they captured of when she was coming and going. It was
that
you.
was us, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Channel 2, for the excellent video that you captured. It was very helpful in our investigation. And yes, it did seem like the hours shifted around a lot to explain why she was transporting his children and bringing them to the office, and then essentially providing daycare.
How involved have you personally been in this case? Obviously, you have a great team of folks up there, but I'm curious, how involved were you in the prep of this case?
So daily briefings, input on strategy, but Greg Goodwin, who's the lead upstairs, is definitely the lead. He's doing a fantastic job, and we have a fantastic team.
So on the Barb Shavers account with the kids in daycare, etc., she testified that the kids were there 10 minutes or so waiting for their mom to be able to pick them up since the schedules didn't overlap. The respondent's attorney, David Mason, said, this is a nothing burger. This is, common practice in life. She's their godmother. This wasn't some egregious stealing of public resources that your office is making it out to be. What's your response to that line of thinking?
Look, the transport is obviously a big problem, that he's using official resources to transport the children. In the modern world, when mom and dad work, kids do end up at the office for short periods of time, but not every day, not on a very regularized basis. It's not built into the scheme of how you provide child care, and that's what was happening here.
Having the feds involved in this case obviously is a big plus for you. It would have been a tougher road, I guess, without the federal involvement.
Well, I think the key component of what the feds have done was for Judge Bodenhausen to order him into custody, because I do think that a lot of Judge Omer's view of the sheriff's ability to do his job changed once he was literally in custody and couldn't possibly come in and do his job.
What's your thoughts about the sheriff being brought in handcuffs and leg shackles? Isn't that overkill, really?
Well, that's a question for the U.S. Marshals, because
what's your feeling?
He's in the
that?
U.S. Marshal custody. I haven't had a conversation with them. I know that when I was U.S. Attorney, that we would be very careful about that if there was a jury present. But in this case, there's no jury, and usually it would happen if the marshals had some concerns. So I would pose that question to them.
It's interesting that the Marshals Service is billing the Sheriff's Department for that cost. Tell me about that's got to be a lot of money.
I have real concerns about that. I think the cost should be borne by the sheriff personally and his organization. I'm not sure why the sheriff's office is bearing that cost. Our action to remove him has nothing to do with the office. It's about him personally and the way he's conducted himself.
There is a point about the finances of this office. We heard from an auditor today who says it's around $1.3 million that the sheriff's office has overspent. But there's some discrepancy. There's the 6 months that involves Sheriff Montgomery, and then there's time from the previous year with Vernon Betts. How much of the overspending of this office do you blame on Sheriff Montgomery and his leadership?
Well, look, there is some dispute about the precise amount, but what we know is that it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that didn't need to be spent, particularly forcing people out of the department, not having an understanding of what their benefits were, plus the new uniforms, plus the badges. And so, we can argue about what precisely the dollar amount is, but the point that he's abusing the taxpayers holds up no matter what the amount is.
The judge said earlier today that he was a little bit concerned about having evidence that was introduced that has something to do with the federal case. I mean, in your opinion, do you think that including that evidence will hurt the state's case at all?
No, and the judge has total control of his courtroom and what evidence comes in. Like, he can say he doesn't want that evidence to come in. He could rule on a motion. Objections can be heard. It's his courtroom. In fact, it says courthouse on the building behind me. He's in total control.
Is there any concerns about former retired Judge David Mason, his involvement in this case? It was said yesterday at some point by a witness that at one point Mason said he runs the sheriff's office. There's times where he speaks he references decisions that he helped make with the department. Is there a conflict of interest in this trial?
Well, that's for the judge to decide. Obviously, the judge expressed some concerns yesterday during the examination of one witness when he said, look, this is a trial about the sheriff and not about you. Certainly, the former judge, who I've known for a long time, has every right to be in private practice and represent clients. He doesn't have the right to say that he is both the client and the lawyer, which that sounded like it was getting a little close to yesterday.
Let me ask you, you followed Bailey in that office. Had you given any thought at any point to taking a kinder, gentler approach, give me that look, to taking a kinder, gentler approach to either the case involving the sheriff or to Sam Page? Or was that a deal that you guys made initially when you got the job?
100% no deals. I've looked at both cases as if it was a clean piece of paper. I met with the sheriff's defense team, gave them all the time they wanted to make their case to me, but I am convinced that both are righteous cases. I'm glad we're finally at trial. I'm glad we're getting close to this being at an end so the taxpayers can stop spending money on a sheriff who's sitting in a jail cell and now on his transport to and from the courthouse.
What did you make of that text snafu on the part of the defense where they briefly were streaming television?
Okay, so honestly, as somebody who's tried cases, my heart broke for them because it happens to everybody, and the judge was clearly very upset. So,
but your strongest point again is going to be that the sheriff is in custody, in federal custody. That's going to be your strongest point.
Well, I don't know about you, but I like to close on a high note, so I suspect that's going to be our summary.
There was questions about the federal case having any influence, but in some regards it already has, right? We started the trial a day late. We know that we started a day late with this trial because Sheriff Alfred Montgomery was still in the custody of the Fed. So there has been some influence.
Well, the two kind of go hand in hand, right? Had we not brought to quo, a lot of the evidence that got charged on the misdemeanor charge wouldn't have been brought to light. And then had the misdemeanor charge not occurred and the sheriff allegedly not tried to tamper with witnesses, there wouldn't be the felony counts. And if he had been fully forthright with probation and parole about how many weapons he had, his burner phone, what he was saying to witnesses, he wouldn't be in custody. So the two do work hand in hand, for sure.
If the judge stripped, which he did, the sheriff of his office temporarily because he was in custody, it's reasonable to believe that how does he reverse that? How does he decide that, okay, I'm going to now let you run the whole office? Is that basically what you guys are saying?
That's what we're saying, but I will also say I have empathy for the position that this judge is in, that the federal charges are still pending. Everybody, including the sheriff, deserves a presumption of innocence, and those are criminal charges. Ours are not criminal charges. They're about whether he can do this job. So I hope that we've put on enough evidence of the ways he's abused his office and not done his job to persuade him that that's enough for removal. Because if we have to wait till the end of the federal case for this judge to make a decision, the taxpayers will be paying for a long time for this sheriff to sit in jail.
Have you guys been willing to make a deal with the sheriff, to have him step down in return, you and the feds together, to make a deal?
Well, not together, but I know that we would be completely satisfied. Like, we would completely go away if he would step down, and the feds will have to speak for themselves.